As Jaedong was making the transition over to Starcraft 2, one of the things he said is the player he looked up to, the guy he looked for kind of guidance without knowing it, was Stephano. He watched a lot of Stephano games. He was a self-proclaimed Stephano fan. And I'm not gonna lie, there was a gigantic pang of, not that Jaedong would ever be like, I look up to In Control plays, obviously, but
it's okay.
It's a huge honor. It's against the point I'm trying to illustrate here. So, and Stephano, of course, in his typical fashion, was just like, of course, you know, like what else would he do? And that makes sense to Stephano, but for the rest of the entire nerd boy galaxy, we envied Stephano even more at that moment in time. So please, Axeltos, tell us who's playing.
Yes, of course we have the two very handsome players from the very handsome team, Evil Geniuses. I think they only hire good-looking people. In the top left-hand location, I present to you the Blue Zerg player hailing from France. He's down 1-0, has a bit of work to do, and I think he likes this map. Representing Evil Geniuses, he is Stephano!
And his opponent, also from Team Evil Geniuses, hailing from Korea, it is the Tyrant, Evil Geniuses Jaedong. And you know, you bring up a really good point. You say he likes this map, obviously in reference. And again, if you guys
I thought you were going to talk about the handsome comment, but go on.
Oh no, that's standard procedure for us. We are all handsome, very handsome. The map last game, I feel like, was bad for Stephano. Very short on merry-go-round, the distances. And if you're doing a timing attack, which again, you kind of give a tip of the hat to Jaedong, and you say, well, that's not on accident. He did that as something that he does, right? We do have an early pool, by the way, and I swear I'll get to it in a second. But talking to the maps again, that timing attack is particularly good on that map in a best of 5. Very smart. Now here, the pathways are a little bit longer. We can see Jaedong is opting for an earlier pool. So to your point, Stephano likes this map. It's paying homage, of course, to the swarm host shenanigans we saw last game, but I think he likes this more too, because again, Stephano wants the game to go longer. That's where he's more comfortable. Early game, ZvZ is kind of rough on him, and already we've got an early pool from Jaedong, but it's versus a 15 spawning pool from Stephano on a big map.
Yep.
Stephano's in fantastic position.
He is. Electing not to go for the hatch first, playing very safe. So, you know,
and he sees the Zerglings.
It's not really a read, but it's just like something he decided to do, and it's definitely going to pay off for him. So he's going to have an advantage here in that he's going to have drones, and he's going to have the ability to make Zerglings here.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't feel like this should be too much trouble at all. And already we can look at the income tab, 15 to 10. Some people might be like, oh, it's 5 drones. That's actually a huge deal between two very elite players at this stage in the game.
Well, there's a very savvy moment coming up here, and you know what? I was just going to say, you have to pull your drones with your Zerglings in order to delay that hatchery, well, not delay, excuse me, but stop it from being killed. Jaedong's pulling a bit of a fast one. He actually goes right up into the mineral line. He's going to delay even more mining up there. And he takes the fight down at the natural, where he will edge out a win, maybe. It's going to be really close. No, he ends up losing by a hair. And inside the main, he's just trying to delay more mining, but when the queen pops out, Stephano takes that advantage to the bank. He's in great shape.
Yep, overall, Stephano, that defender's advantage. Of course, your units come from your hatchery. You have time because it's a long rush distance.
I got overeager.
Oops.
This queen's going to come down here, but the queen's only got 2 Zerglings to support it and 2 more on the way. I don't know if that's enough. She takes a good space here, though, not giving up full surface area. Yeah, that was a good fight for Stephano. Never mind.
Yeah, and behind this, Jaedong's going to be a little bit behind. So what do you think about that decision from Jaedong to go for the early pool?
Well, that's just Jaedong ZvZ. I mean, you can go all the way back to one of the more infamous ones in fairly recent history. Last year in WCS, he knocked Scarlet out of WCS by 6 pulling, I believe it was, which is, you know, not everyone's favorite strategy, but that's what Jaedong does. It was in a decisive, I think it was game 5 of a best of 5, or it was game 3 of a best of 3. Either way, it was the deciding game. And that's how Jaedong gets it done. He plays the mind games. He'll do the builds that he thinks will give him the best chance to win. And in this case, Stephano is 1 step ahead. And that's a little bit of the coin flip that is in ZvZ. Like, it's not like Jaedong goes into this knowing that this is going to work. That was his gambit. That was his attempt to outsmart Stephano. And Stephano, like he has so many times in the past, it just calls up exactly the right counter.
So we'll have to see where this goes from here. Of course, Stephano with, you know, a minor advantage at this point of the game, but this is Jaedong, and this is his best matchup, and you got to think he's been in this situation many times before. So from here, Do you expect Stephano to really just ease it up, play for the late game, and play very patiently, or do you expect some sort of timing attack to try to take advantage of whatever minor advantage he might have right now?
Well, what Stephano has going for him is any and all of the above is available to him. A little bit of a miscue as he tries to run by. Actually, he is going to get the run by. Certainly dies before it can see the other gas. So he doesn't have all information. As we can see here, is we have all information for ourselves. And maybe Stephano knows that with the 3 queens that are spotted. But it is a gasless opening. So if I'm Stephano, Stephano's gas, excuse me, I would take the fast third. So that's my dream build for him, because without gas, there's nothing Jaedong could do to stop that. But to fully answer your question, the nice thing about having that advantage, that 6 or 7 drone advantage that he did have, he really can do anything he wants.
And that feels good. That's got to feel good for him. He's got an open slate to work with, as he's trying to track down these links coming into his base. Of course, Jaedong trying to get as much scouting information as possible. Yeah, I'm a little bit surprised that third base hasn't gone down just yet. I feel like the timing is certainly very close, or it might have passed a little bit to get that thing on the ground.
He's going to emphasize upgrades. He gets fast +1 attack here, and he does put a drone over at the third base spot, so it looks like he will be doing that. But it's important to note, before this, Jaedong pulls off the perfect scout. He sees everything. He sees the double Evo, he sees the Roach Horn, sees the gas of the natural, pulls up in the main, sees no gas there. I mean, that is as good of a scout as it gets. And he has an overloaded position to see the third, which he sees just now. And again, that's very typical Jaedong ZvZ. Also extremely informed. He takes his risks. That's kind of where he either succeeds or falls from time to time. But one thing you can say about a ZvZ is that it's always very well scouted.
And I like, you know, to kind of line there, Stephano kind of doing the same thing here. Has these lings outside his opponent's natural expansion. What's important here is scouting the timing of that third base, so he can really get a good read on what his opponent is doing. Equally as important is Jaedong's urgency, or the necessity to get this third base down. Stephano going to try to delay it as long as he can. The drone, no! Oh my God, he transfused the drone. Okay, you know that works.
Even a transfuse.
Why do I doubt Jaedong? I don't know.
Well, it's not ideal. So, you know, your doubt at times is certainly justified, but Jaedong pulls out a fast one.
That was like such a quick reflex there.
Both these players so good. Behind that, though, if you take a look at the Harvester count, it's equal. They've equalized that way. But, I mean, if you look at the production tab, it kind of tells a story. The third, slightly faster. The upgrades, slightly faster across the board. +1 range and carapace, as well as road speed, all faster for Stephano. There is a big supply disparity between the two, because while the harvesters are fairly similar, there are simply more roaches out for Stephano right now, 11-4. Now, as he pushes across, and it's a big map, Jaedong knows this. He sees them coming, or at least he should.
He does.
Yeah, he sees with the Overseer now. So his shorter supply train should allow him to perhaps catch up, but it's a 20 supply differential. He's in trouble.
Yeah, defender's advantage is huge here. Stephano coming across the map. We have a lot of roaches in production for both these two guys. Another thing to look out for is when they go back into drone production, when they start feeling comfortable to transition, or whether they transition at all. 1-1 about to finish here for Jaedong. I think the +1 attack is already done for Stephano. Yes, it is. So minor timing window maybe, but not being aggressive towards that third hatchery. He's a little bit worried about getting trapped, because if he commits too far down there, he doesn't have a retreat path.
Not shown on camera, actually. We had a Ling counterattack at the third, and it got the queen down to 14 health, but with the drones being pulled, that's all that happened. Every Zergling did die. So again, a nice handling of harass from Stephano. Stephano does end up backing away, and you can see Jaedong did catch up in supply, but again, that's going to be that ebb and flow of a ZvZ. If you look at the harvesters, all of a sudden, Jaedong's up, again, 7 harvesters. That's because while that was going on, he was making drones. This will go on back and forth. The question is, will a player make a mistake? Like, if Jaedong drones too heavy now, but all of a sudden Stephano adds 20 roaches to his army, that can be the decisive moment in time. But both players, again, trying to stay so informed with these Overseers that I doubt that'll happen anytime too soon. Yeah,
tech paths are very similar right now for both these guys. 2-2, 2-2 underway for both. And from here, Hydra Den is very likely. I'm not sure if either player has placed that down just yet. It's that decision between, okay, should I just max up straight on roaches? Do I mix in some Hydras in? How do I want my composition to look like? How much mobility do I want to have? If you go purely roach, you can really attack in a lot of different directions, which can be really good on this map, considering there's rocks leading to that natural expansion. And you can wrap some roaches around and be annoying at the top right as well. But again, it's a very long map, so some interesting decisions are going to have to be made here by these players. They're making the exact same decisions right now. Burrow on the way for both at the exact same time at the 13-minute mark of the game, as well as Tunneling Claws. These guys are good.
Stephano very subtly having his evolution chamber corrupted actually in the background as well. So Jaedong trying to slow down that upgrade advantage.
Nice.
That he is suffering from. Or
and we're going to see something else happen.
Really
Stephano's like, you know, that looks kind of cool. Let me do that too.
And Stephano gives them the same treatment. Very nice. As you said, though, both players building exactly the same thing. Tunneling Claw is very important here, but both players have Overseers, so I don't see it being, at least at first glance here, the most amazing and critical upgrade. What I like is that they'll both have it available to them. We've seen Jaedong split off 8 or 9 roaches, burrow them, and run into the main. That kind of a thing is very good with the multitask. Stephano made an entire career off of his multitask, so I'm kind of giddy with excitement to see who comes out ahead there.
That's a great way to put it. See what happens here. They're both approaching max. That's happening. So we're going to start seeing some engagements, some army movement, and if you put your army in the wrong place, you're going to have a bad time. It's all about that concave. Who can get more roaches attacking at once? Who has the high ground? Who's got the big concave? And we might see an engagement fairly soon. Both players' armies are massive within this location. Look at this. Stephano actually wrapping it from the left. He's trying to get a pulse around Jaedong. Stephano is in a bit of an awkward position. Jaedong, look at all the surface area he has. He's even pressing himself even closer to increase the DPS for those roaches. There's some burrow play where the Overseer is just now finishing for Jaedong. Perfect timing, and all these roaches are falling for Stephano, and Jaedong treating that beautifully, able to just perfectly position his army to create a welcome party that Stephano never wanted to see.
Jaedong takes a decisive advantage, but I'll tell you what, behind that, Stephano with fantastic economic harass. At the natural, in the main, not so much, but he kills almost every single turn with the natural.
Wow.
And that's going to buy Stephano time. He's got a ton of money. He doesn't have any tech available to him, so he's not, like, reloading. I mean, he does have a Hydra Den, but he's not going to reload on pure Hydralisk.
No.
But he needs time. Look at the supply differential. It's a 50 supply difference.
Yep.
And Stephano's going to buy that time. More roaches burrowing inside the main. A little bit of a dance outside. But Jaedong's going to kind of play his cards close to his chest as he hangs out back at home because he knows those roaches are out there somewhere.
Yeah. And honestly, these burrowed roaches, they're keeping Jaedong back, so Jaedong can't necessarily be aggressive across the map. So nice heads-up move there from Stephano. And honestly, at the end of the day, both players were maxed. Stephano was maxed, so, you know, he was looking to free up some supply a little bit. Maybe didn't want as bad of a trade as it was, but overall, not a gigantic deal. I mean, a 4th base is going to be secured here from Jaedong, taking advantage of the map control he's going to have. And no 4th up just yet here for Stephano. Looks like Jaedong might try to be aggressive.
I hate to do it, Exotos, but I'm going to disagree with you again, buddy. I think it was a pretty gigantic deal. He's reloaded on Hydras, and he is only down 30 supply. Of course, that'll change as time goes. He's also adding Spine Crawlers, so he might be able to make a difference here. But behind this, I mean, if Stephano survives, that 4th can end up being game-changing, and of course we have an infestation pit for Jaedong, which generally speaking is the better tech versus Hydras on pseudo-low economy. I say pseudo because it's not truly. He's at three untouched bases, so it's pretty okay. And as time goes on, if Jaedong doesn't attack here, what you said becomes much more true. If Jaedong doesn't actually punish an attack here, and I think he won't, the time has kind of come and gone. So in your defense, no, despite the fact that he was behind 50 or 60 supply, Jaedong just wasn't able to hit that timing when it was the burrow attacks, and now
he's being patient.
Stephano's okay.
And the big thing here is Jaedong, I think, going through his mind a little bit, he's like, okay, my opponent's on 3 bases, I've established my 4th, he's checking both 4th locations to make sure there's no additional hatcheries. So that's the option, those are the 2 options there. Either you attack with your huge roach horde, which is definitely a viable strategy, but then you're kind of going into your opponent's grasp a little bit as far as giving them the defender's advantage. Stephano would be able to take up concave positions. He has the static defense there too. So Jaedong's like, you know what? I don't really want to take that risk. I want to just make sure the 4th doesn't go down, establish my own 4th, and build my lead into the mid game, maybe tech up in a bunch of various directions. And so he's doing. He's got fungal growth on the way, 6 infestors on the way. So getting the tech up while getting his economy ahead of his opponent.
Yeah, I agree. And Jaedong's going to tear down the rocks, in the backfield here.
I kind of like that.
Stephano really muscling up. You can see that he's very, very high on the Hydra count. Not yet going to high, but there is an infestation pit that could either be for the dreaded Swarm Host or, as we can see it here, the Hive, which is a nice choice. It's going to give him access to 3 upgrades, of course. Eventually, perhaps something like Swarm Host, but also Vipers, very powerful in ZvZ. A nice supplement to Roach Hydra. Some Blinding Clouds have a good effect. Not so much the Abduct. That's more for things like, again, Swarm Hosts or maybe Infestors, I suppose. Jaedong in the backfield, though, has added a ton of Spine Crawlers, an absolute ton.
Yep.
His fourth base is out on an island by itself, and I don't think these Spine Crawlers are necessary for him to survive. He's just freeing up supply for more Infestors.
Sure. I agree 100%. And as this goes on, still no fourth base from Stephano. He's tried a couple times to secure it, but again, Jaedong doing a great job keeping tabs of that. And Jaedong is just staying very patient right now. He's kind of waiting for Stephano to make a move, and there we see Enduring Locusts on the way here for Stephano. So definitely have Swarm Hosts on his mind. And we'll have to see what Jaedong does here. He's got a lot of roaches. He's maxed.
Stephano says, I'm behind, and I've got 3 bases, and on 3 bases, I know I can make 60 Swarm Hosts if you let me. And from there, he can slow the game down to neutralize and eventually get in a place where it is a game of patience. Now, on the flip side, one thing that really concerns me, Jaedong only has, and I say only because he had 45 drones, but he just made a bunch more structures. So he actually is down to 36 harvesters.
Yeah.
That makes your army massive, and that's good. But what's bad is that, yes, he has 2K bank, and he does cancel, so he'll bring those drones back, but still only at 45 drones. He's not going to have the most absolute bank. His army's bigger, but that is a concern. That's something to look for. If this game does get slowed down and he's only on 40-some-odd drones, Stephano could just outspin him, basically.
Yep. That's a really good point. Also, I just want to point out very briefly for any of you new players out there, 207 over 200 for Jaedong as far as supply is concerned. That's not a glitch. What you do is you actually make buildings with drones, then you make the units, and then you cancel the buildings. A little bit of a trick to get yourself more army on the map. So definitely fun to try at home. I've definitely had moments where I just felt like going and opening up a custom game on my own and just seeing how high of a supply army you can make. But Jaedong just trying to make his army a little bit bigger.
Well said, friend. Right now, we only have 3 Swarm Hosts, so for the time being, we are not at that point in time where Jaedong simply can't attack. And one of the things to kind of keep watching is Stephano's maxed out for the most part. He's got a ton of Roach Hydra, and well, there you go. He's going to burrow these roaches and try to look around for a counterattack. This is going to be how he's going to want to free that up. On the flip side, Jaedong has an extremely scary army. I don't see the Vipers with this. I know that he made some. Or at least I thought I saw that he made some.
He has 3 Vipers.
Yeah, they're somewhere. Oh, there they are, coming across the map now, full energy. That's a very scary army. Jaedong's going for the counterattack, but there's so many Spine Crawlers behind this that I almost feel like the counterattack's a good idea, but in execution, terrible. It could be very bad for him.
This is great. Jaedong is playing this, I think, very well. Again, continually denying these 4th bases while keeping his 4th base up, which means Stephano's going to have to get some work done across the map. It's time to make some decisions and get some damage done. I like this move, bringing the roaches, avoiding the Spine Crawl wall. Oh, he can't even shoot from the high ground, though, so he's just going to go straight into that mineral line.
Roaches trying to do what they can. Jaedong's Overseer's spot that the army of Stephano has exposed itself. Bump of Growth goes out, captures a lot. Another one whiffs, however. And Jaedong wants this fight. He has the far and away more powerful army.
Yeah.
The hatchery of Jaedong at the 3rd is being targeted down, but that shouldn't be enough. And Jaedong's got a pretty big advantage again. Another 30-some-odd supply advantage. A 4th base attempt from from Stephano has been stifled now 3 times. Is this enough to get Jaedong to stir, to be decisive?
This is interesting. I mean, he's only got 39 harvesters, but again, as you said, his army advantage is just so massive. He's got so many expensive units that can be so cost efficient for him. Yeah. But if he loses them, it's no fun. And we just saw 15 Swarm Hosts in production there for Stephano. So still on 3 bases, pretty much using all of his resources on those Swarm Hosts. And the timing where Jaedong can go for the kill, I think it might be slowly expiring.
Yeah, and then it's getting to that point too where we're like, oh gosh, it's really going to happen again. Jaedong loses 3rd behind this.
We know everyone's thinking it right now.
He's maxed in banking, so that's really not the biggest of deals. It's obviously something you don't want to happen, but if it does happen, you're not super fretful about it. The roaches in the main base continue to be really annoying, actually. They pop out and are killing drones there. Jaedong's army in the middle of the map is still much more powerful. Yep. But as you said, over time, and the time's there, by the way, this is not 3 Swarm Hosts, this is 19. And 19 is that number that you have to keep an eye on. Now, Jaedong has added a greater Spire, and that was something we saw sorely lacking in that last game. This is one of the ways you do answer Swarm Hosts, is you take to the skies. But he doesn't really have any Corruptors out or the means to make Corruptors, actually.
Some light counterattacks here from Stephano. Jaedong looking like he wants to be a little bit sneaky, lots of Hydras. The Viper's actually baiting, and Jaedong gonna throw down some fungals. I think he did that on purpose, I'm not entirely sure, but he's gonna take that engagement, taking out a lot of those Hydras, taking down a good amount of drones as well, and actually abducting some of those Vipers, throwing down the Infested
abducts them to what?
He threw down some Infested Terrans.
So he did in the end there. Yeah, two of the three get away, or one of the three, excuse me. So
that made me smile a little bit. I respect that move.
But we're here. It's time. And it won't be long until Jaedong starts adding either his own Swarm Host or something, but Stephano has done it again. He's dragged the game on long enough to where he now has enough Swarm Hosts that you really can engage into that. These Roaches of Jaedong, their only job at this point in time is to either pick off fourth bases like this, or to somehow get in the main and harass, but they are no longer the standing army. They are an afterthought.
No, you're absolutely right. And, you know, Roach is very mobile. You know, there might be room to try to get a counterattack in the natural expansion, but this is where Stephano starts attributing his rally points of his Swarm Host to try to cover all of those paths, and he'll definitely be watching that corner. He has an Overseer right here, so if his opponent's army starts coming up there, he just simply changes the rally point of the Swarm Host to come in this location, even bringing some Swarm Hosts in this location to cover that potential weakness. So Stephano, as he did you know, yesterday, trying to cover all those exposed locations with those Swarm Host rallies, and now it's up to Jaedong to try to decide, okay, how can I break this? What am I going to do next? Getting some flyer attacks, so we'll have to see what he ends up making.
There could be the infamous Jaedong Muta switch being plotted. We haven't seen any Corruptors. There's no Swarm Host of his own, so he's not planning even a second Spire now. So I really don't think he's sitting here saying, gosh, I'm going to get it done with Roaches. That cannot be his ideal plan. I think what he wants to do is lose some Roaches, free up enough supply that all of a sudden there's 40 Mutalisks. And those 40 Mutalisks could end up doing game-ending damage. But to counteract that, we see Stephano adding Pathogen Glands. He still has a decent number of Hydras. These Hydras do have 3/3 upgrades. And any kind of Spore Crawler is like a one-man army against Mutalisks. They three-shot him. They do devastating damage. There's the Mutas.
And Jaedong's max right now, even though he has a lot of money. So he's only able to make 10 Mutas. So I'm wondering, he's going to trade away these Roaches. Going to kind of suicide them in the top right. And just so he can get more Mutas on the map. And we'll have to see how
target firing the Hydras.
And we'll have to see how Stephano kind of reacts to this.
Yeah, well, Stephano's reaction is going to be what we saw yesterday, to just not react. And I don't even say that as a joke. Part of, like, I walked out of there, I shook hands with him, said, good job. He said, are you happy for me? And I said, no. You should have done something. And he just kind of laughed. But Stephano's game plan is to be more patient than his opponent. And against Jaedong, there's a very scary, real prospect that he literally could wait Jaedong out. Jaedong is very fast, very aggressive.
Yep. But
one thing I could say, and I feel like a lot of people would agree with this, he's not super impressive with his mega late game gameplay. He makes a lot of iffy decisions, and it's not playing to his strengths. So this Mutalisk ball that's growing, this could be great. This is something I wanted to see yesterday. They're seeing right now, are there Infestors out?
See what happens. I think he does have a few...
No Infestors are out. It's just Hydras.
Okay, he's going to target down these Swarmers. He's like, get out of here, Stephano. This is how you play Zerg. I'm getting the super fast, super mobile Mutas to counteract your super slow, super siege type units in the Swarm Host. 9 Spore Crawlers immediately underway for Stephano. And Jaedong is going to try to get as much damage done as he can before Stephano can get up the appropriate defenses.
And this is basically the only mining base for Stephano who doesn't have a real bank. And this is really nice for now. But what's scary again is once these Spore Crawlers do finish, Stephano's, like I said, he's not decisive. He doesn't need to go out on the map, and the Mutalisks cannot fight there. The Spore Crawler's just tearing him a new one.
Ouch.
Hydra's not a great response, but Stephano needed hands on deck right now. I would have rather seen Infestors. He actually has less minerals and more gas, and there we are. 5 Infestors are coming out. Jaedong's going to pull back, and if you look at that production tab, he's getting melee upgrades and +2 range attack. I feel like he's not going to keep going with Mutalisks because as nice as that was, picking up 2 bases, the adjustment from Stephano will be so powerful that, it's going to be Brood Lords.
Yep.
Basically, Mutas just get shut down. Spore Crawler, Infestor, no dice, no chance.
And of course, Jaedong is still going to try to maximize damage output with these Mutas, continuing to deny the 4th base from Stephano. And we're going to see Brood Lords. So Obviously a slower unit, but I really like this elegant kind of transition here from Jaedong. Going with a lot of mutas, and then, you know, working on the upgrades for them, and then transitioning into the Corruptors and Broodlords.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's a pretty cool play a way to play Zerg late game.
It's his best shot. To just make Swarmhost of his own right now would not only seal the fate of everyone watching this game, but it would also be to play from behind, right? Like, it's something we saw Petraeus do, but that was because Petraeus had the advantage, then lost the advantage, but also Stephano just kind of sat there. Broodlords will be his way of saying, you know, I'm going to be more mobile than you. But they're not nearly as good at the static game. If Stephano can get his Swarmhost to that middle fourth base, or whatever you want to call it, that dead center middle base, and fortify it with stacked defenses, from there, he shuts down Jaedong's fourth and even fifth base on the right side that's being taken now, or sixth, whatever you want to call that. That's devastating. The Broodlords would then have to like egg him on by counterattacking inside the main and natural, that kind of thing.
Jaedong trying to power down some spores in the natural expansion. Yes, he has 8 Broodlords in a way. I don't know. Muta's actually getting abducted by Vipers.
Well. I mean, yeah, why not? There's 4 Colors and Hydras behind that. They're dying for every abduction.
Mutas aren't too happy about that.
No.
They're used to zipping around, and all of a sudden they get abducted. No fun at all.
Jaedong wants to lose him, though. He's okay with that. Mutas don't have any place going beyond this.
Sure.
So he's trying to poke and prod and keep him moving, but his options for where to harass are shrinking. And now, look at this. The Swarmhosts are starting to really crawl their way into that fourth base. Stephano adding that dramatic flare. It takes him forever to move his Swarmhost, but there they are, and they're just barely out of range. See how they died just seconds before?
Yep.
They've even worked that hatchery down to low health. So the Broodlord's gonna come here to buy time, and that's fine. We're gonna see free units versus free units again, a special treat.
Yes. Yes, indeed. Here we go. First free trades. How many free trades will we see in this game?
Oh, guys, please. The audience, there's some semblance of people that love this. It is interesting, and he's going to push forward, but the game that's at hand is you should see more Vipers. Yep, more Vipers on the production tab. The answer for these Broodlords is still abduction. So Jaedong could re-abduct them back into safety. He can try to eliminate the Vipers of his opponent. But here we go. We're going to have that engagement. There's the first abduction. Very nice.
Fungal onto the Mutas. Of course, the Broodlord's getting abducted there by the Vipers, trying to bring him into the Spore Crawler range. And of course, the epic battle will always be happening on the ground there. The Broodlords versus the Locusts. So we're not going to lose to that too much, I hope. This is all about what kind of real damage can you get done as far as how many abducts can you get on either for Jaedong on the Swarmhost, or how, from Stephano's point of view, how many abducts can you get on the Broodlords? And so far, Stephano's doing a pretty solid job grabbing a lot of these Broodlords.
Notice the supply. It's falling for the much richer Jaedong. He needs to target down the anti-air. Right now, it's just a couple of Hydras in the Spore Crawlers. He's not really targeting things down. And as such, his Broodlings are just kind of buying time. But for every abduction that Stephano does, that's a dead Broodlord, which is very expensive. Meanwhile, the Swarmhosts are untouched, right? So Stephano's behind in money. That's Jaedong's really saving grace right now. And he's starting to target the Spore Crawlers now. And Stephano's not remaking any. But Jaedong's been thinned out. He's down to 4 Broodlords. He's going to back away.
Jaedong just needs a way to just get any trades going, because Stephano doesn't have pretty much any ability to rebuild. But that's the trick here. How can Jaedong get those favorable trades? I mean, his Vipers have to get close enough to abduct the Swarmhost, but Stephano has an army of Vipers of his own, so he's not going to let him get close at all. So
see how Jaedong backs away? That's because he doesn't want to be able to be abducted into Spore Crawlers.
Right.
And from here, his Broodlings will buy him time. This way, that base doesn't just flat out die. If Stephano moved everything up and had just a wave after wave after wave of his Locust coming in, there's a chance he could get past this. But as more Broodlords are being added, it should be fine for Jaedong. And I think what Jaedong's going to do, no, there's his own Enduring Locust upgrade. So he's actually going to max out on free units.
I think that's what the crowd was cheering on.
Yeah.
All right. I'm a hopeful guy, so see what ends up happening here.
I think what's disappointing though is again, both these players don't have all the information, but what always bothers me is that we get here again with one player having a massive advantage, the other one adding a ton of stacked defenses, and then just making swarm hosts, and that's like all it takes to guarantee an hour or 2 hours of this.
Right.
And it feels like the players are partly responsible. Like Jaedong should have known, hey, I'm up 60 supply. I need just to lay it on, you know, to go for it.
He's not able to do anything like that. I mean, he has 7,000 in the bank, and people at home are like, okay, I'm seeing this bank, 7,500 to 1,300.
He's taking the bases that Stephano could take too, by the way.
Yeah, he
Oh
is.
wow, Stephano being aggressive with the Swarmos here, by the way. This is a lot further forward, and I like this from Stephano. This means there's going to be a lot more Locusts coming down Jaedong's way. A lot more. He's adding his own Swarmos though too.
Yeah, he's actually being very forceful with proceeding this. Much different than the game we saw yesterday. Oh, look at that. He's taken down so many Brumos here, abducting about 6 or 7, pulling him into the spore call. It's great play there from Stephano. And he is taking this game to Jaedong right now, not playing that passively at all, just forcefully pushing himself closer and closer to Jaedong's 4th base. And I'm waiting to see what Jaedong, oh, there they are.
Jaedong gets knocked down a good 50 supply, a very aggressive move from Stephano, like you said, and that's awesome. It's awesome to see. Now he's going after the hatchery at the Battle of Transfuse versus Locust and Locust. And Stephano's going to reload. He's being very patient about his reload. So far, it's just 4 Infestors and a few Vipers, which should cost him this base. I can't see this base standing much longer. Yeah, it goes down. Jaedong, of course, has so much money, but look at his gas. He actually doesn't have any gas.
Looks like he is prioritizing that on his extra bases, or at least he should be.
He's mined out most of his gases. Right now, he's on 3 gas with that base dying. 3 gas. He's got the option to take that left side gas. Now, Stephano, he doesn't have gas either, but again, that's the strength of Swarmos. He's not rebuilding much.
Right. I mean, resources lost. We can just look at that, 36,500 to 25,200. So Stephano well ahead in that regard, meaning he's not losing a lot of units, so he's not having to replenish as much. Of course, Jaedong losing a lot of units because he's trying to come up with ways to make a dent into Stephano in any way possible, trying to make trades. But Stephano's just done a great job preventing those trades from happening, and he's even going to shut down this base on the left-hand side. So we honestly have a pretty even game on our hands.
It's fairly even, but I'll tell you, all things considered, I trust Stephano. I like Stephano's center control. He has a much higher swarm host count. Jaedong reloaded on Infestors. I don't understand that move at all. They're okay.
Such limited gas, too.
Yeah, that's all his gas.
And he only has 17 swarm hosts to Stephano's 37, which is a very significant difference. That means Stephano can send those Locusts in so many different directions, whereas Jaedong is very limited in how many free Locusts he can get out there.
Jaedong's having a tough time. He's losing all those Infestors right now, by the way. He needs this base in the middle of the map. That's his, right now he's on 2 gases, by the way. No, he's still on 3. Never mind. He's got 3.
Oh. Good abduction throughout this. This is great. Stephano controlling these Vipers so well, pulling all of these units into the Spore Crawler range and continuing to reinforce with those Locusts. And Stephano keeps getting fantastic trades. The resources lost is just in Stephano's favor so much, and it continues to go into his favor. And again, the lack of gas, as you pointed out, is starting to affect Jaedong, now finally going into swarm host production again. And I'm a little bit confused as well as why he decided to make those Infestors.
You know, Jaedong tried the Mutalisk thing, but he got 2 bases for it, and as we said at the time, you don't need a whole lot of bases for swarm host. Once you get up that critical mass, you're not looking for globs of money because you're not losing any units. So the Mutalisk tech switch, good in theory, in execution, not great.
Yeah.
He follows it up with Broodlords, good in theory, not great in execution. They all get abducted into Spore Crawlers. Now he's like, okay, I guess I have to go Swarmos, but even then he's kind of half-assing it. Like, he added Hydras, he added Infestors. Those are all not the right call. They've all been dead weight for him so far. And that's why he's down 60 supply and no gas.
It's like, I mean, what happens when they both approach 40 swarm hosts is the game gets very, you know, we saw it yesterday. So does that go into Jaedong's mind? Is always like, okay, I don't want this game, I don't want that to happen in this game, but is that the only option for him, kind of a thing?
That is Jaedong's only option right now. Other than that, he's getting grinded down. He's losing. It's weird because he has this free base on the right side that Stephano just, I guess, doesn't know exists. But that's the only reason it's there. Otherwise, Jaedong is spending globs of money just trying to survive in the middle of the map, whereas Stephano's just rallying. He's fine.
Yeah, and honestly, I don't think he's lost a unit in a very, very,
And
very,
now he
very,
is
very
moving to the
long
right
time.
side to go challenge that base.
Yep. Stephano playing this so well, really just getting that Swarm Host count up and staying on top of exactly what Jaedong is making and where Jaedong is kind of focusing his attention. You know, making all the correct responses, abducting the units that he wants to abduct. And this is going to lead to a very favorable advantage here for Stephano, and Jaedong is left probably kicking himself a little bit.
Yeah, I think you said it.
What could he have really done differently, though, Jaedong, do you think?
Well, there's, like I said, there's that point in time where he has a 4th base, he's up 60 supply, he has infinite roaches versus, you know, a handful of Hydralisks. 60 supply difference is a big, big deal. And I think what Jaedong could have done at that time is, even if he doesn't kill Stephano and he trades out his 60 supply advantage for the 3rd and most of Stephano's army, he can afford to reload, whereas Stephano couldn't.
Right.
And if he continues to grind him down from there, that's how you win the game. Now, I understand, Jaedong, you don't always, you know, sometimes you give away your lead by attacking really poorly. It's just like, you know, I was praising his intel before that and saying he always is so well informed. Well, part of the reason why he didn't do that was because he stopped scouting at that point in time and didn't know. So it's kind of frustrating.
And at this point, Stephano just needs to be slowly, slow, methodical, slowly advance those.
Not mining gas
forward.
right now. He just got 5 gas for something. Oh, he's long distance mining the gas from his middle base. Otherwise, he's got no gas. He's down to 100 supply. This is over.
Yeah, it's going to be a slow death here for Jaedong. Stephano getting behind, and Jaedong just confirming.
It'll be a GG right
Yeah,
here.
he's just going to GG, I think.
Jaedong's asking if he's dead, basically, and he's finding out that he is. Stephano's just going to continue to abduct. He should be abducting Swarmos out of the ground into Locust, but he's not doing that, which is, again, frustrating, because that's... Let's see if he does it here. He really should be doing that.
Well,
And... yeah.
he's able to see him anyway with the overseers, and there's GG from Jaedong. So Stephano going Stephano style. Stephano style, and falls a little bit behind, gets those Swarm Hosts out, and just plays the patient game, I guess.
And he plays it better than most people, if not everyone, to be honest with you. Like, Jaedong is ahead as many as 3 bases that game. He's ahead 60 supply at some point. But Stephano does such a good job of transitioning into it very safely. He knows 3 bases is the key number. I don't need to expose myself by pushing out to a 4th. The only time he took a 4th was when Swarmos were already coming out and he had 20 plus Spine Crawlers and Spore Crawlers. Jaedong looks at those defenses and says, I mean, I guess I could attack into that, but probably not a great idea. He pulls back. He's stuck on the same tech, and he's just behind. Swarm Hosts are out for Stephano and not for Jaedong. That means that by the time Jaedong realizes he should have made Swarm Hosts, he's already thrown away so much in resources.
Yeah, it's a situation where you can't really engage that. And, you know, it goes all the way back to that moment where we were theorizing about, you remember Jaedong had that big advantage, at least